I'm Leah Lane, an award-winning travel writer and author of Places I Remember, Tales, Truths, Delights from 100 Countries. On this podcast, we share conversations with travelers about fascinating destinations and memorable experiences around the world. As a travel agent, Gary Loupassakis has inspired his clients to travel the globe. And in his new book, Go Dat Way and Go Dare, Around the World in 50 Years, readers are invited on a global journey through his long career in the travel industry. We'll be sharing some of those experiences and destinations on this episode. Welcome, Gary, to Places I Remember.
Thank you.
First, tell us a bit about the title of the book.
The title came from a young Jamaican man whom we asked for directions. We were driving from outside of Montego Bay to Negril, and we got lost in the middle of Montego Bay. And we stopped this young man, and he kind of pointed in like no particular direction and said, "Go that way and go there."
You went there.
Yeah, we went there and we found the grill.
I have a story similar. When I was in Tanzania once, someone was driving the car. We didn't know where we were. And we passed a village and the person says, "Turn left at the liver." It was hanging in the window. So we looked for a liver. And we got there. You have to be resourceful when you travel. What are tips you would give to a traveler as a travel agent? What would you say?
Don't drink the water. Take your pocketbook and strap it over your shoulder so it's in the front of you, not dangling off of your shoulder. An agent of mine years ago, she and her husband were driving and she had her pocketbook on her lap and the window was open and they stopped at a traffic light and somebody reached in, grabbed her pocketbook off her lap and took off. It had her passport and all her money and everything in it. So yeah.
I've had that happen.
I did really, yeah. I mean, it's terrible.
But mine was strapped across my chest, but someone on the street on a motorcycle came by real fast and ripped it off, even though it was.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't take your neck off.
Yeah, I was happy he didn't. That's true. I do want to say about street food, if there's a long line, lots of people, and your eyes and your nose tell you it's pretty good, I would say, depending on who you are, you might take a chance on that because some of the best food in many areas are on the street. Always be aware. Right. Now, travel agents get travel perks. And my favorite one in your book is your flight on the Supersonic Concorde aircraft.
It was back in the 70s.
Okay, what was that like?
We flew from Dulles Airport in Washington to London on British Airways. Back in the day, it took 6 hours, which it still does now. But on the Concorde, it only took like 3.5. When you take off with it, it doesn't take off gradually like a 747 does. It takes up really straight up. If you ever saw pictures of it, it's got a nose that pops up and down. And you actually feel it actually pushes you back into the seat because of the speed. And then when it finally gets to the altitude, which is about 60,000 feet, which is maybe twice the altitude of a normal aircraft, you can actually see the curvature of the Earth.
Wow.
And the sky isn't blue anymore. It takes on a purplish tint. When the astronauts are up into space, the sky is black. Well, it goes from light blue to darker blue to at 60,000 feet, it's almost purple. And it flies at Mach 2.5, which is 2.5 times the speed of sound. And they have a little counter, that digital clock up on the wall. You could watch it tick off until it got to Mach 2.5. You were only at that speed for about an hour. So
sounds fascinating. And I know they stopped flying a while back, but I read that they're going to return at some point. So when they do, I hope I can go and do this because it sounds like a not only fast way to get somewhere, but an experience.
Right. But really back in those days, the cost was really expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive now to fly first class. I mean, it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000.
But you had an extra 3 hours in wherever you were going.
Well, that's for sure. That's
more time.
You can go inside one in New York Harbor. They have a World War II.
The Intrepid.
The Intrepid, right. And they have one of the planes there and you can actually walk inside it.
Interesting. Let's talk some about the cultures, traditions, and tourist attractions of a few of the countries you describe in your book. We have different takes on some of them, so we'll both share info and lots of memories. Let's start with Australia.
It's one of the places I'd like to get back to. I'm kind of not into repeating things. I found Sydney to be a delightful city, and then Cairns was beautiful, and the
Right.
Great Barrier Reef was fascinating.
Well, at that time, it was gorgeous. I know today a lot of it,
Yeah, I know.
unfortunately, is awfully
I said that in
sad.
the
Yeah.
book. Yeah, it's unfortunate global warming is ruining it.
Yep. Yep.
But what I did find, the people were very friendly. They liked Americans. It's kind of unusual in certain parts around the world.
They're friendly people in general.
And
I
then,
was in Melbourne there. That's the foodie city. Was very impressed by the beauty of it. And it's sort of the second city. You think of Sydney first and then Melbourne, but it's a cultural hub.
Mhm.
And that also was very nice. And we went to the Blue Mountains. I know you did as well.
Yes, we did.
Very pretty.
It was gorgeous. The scenery there was gorgeous.
And in the wine area around Australia, I have to say, I was looking at the vineyards and all of a sudden kangaroos were hopping around the vineyards. You can't see that anywhere else. It's a vision, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't see them along the street too often, but
No,
they
like wine. They like wine.
Well, they like the grapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said in the book, if you want to see a kangaroo, go to a zoo.
Well, I liked him hopping around the vineyard, but I thought I was seeing things. Maybe I had too much wine. I don't know. They look good. Okay, I know one of your favorite places is Switzerland. What especially do you love about Switzerland?
It's the scenery, the mountains with the snow on top, even in the summer. It's just breathtaking. I mean, southern Germany and northern Austria is the same way. It's in the Bavarian area, but Switzerland's got it all over. I mean, you don't have an industrial town like northern Germany or something like that. I mean, all the villages are so quaint and so beautiful. If it wasn't for the cold winters, I could move there.
Oh, really? Well, global warming might make it
That might
more
change
easy, right?
a little bit, but I've been there maybe half a dozen times. Been to Bern and Zurich and Lucerne. Lucerne, I love Lucerne. You could sit at a little cafe along the lake there and have a glass of wine or cappuccino. Just watch the people go by. It's just a lovely village, lovely town.
Speaking of sitting and eating, I have a story in Zurich. There's a restaurant that is called Blinda Kuh, Blind Cow. Do you know about that restaurant?
No,
It's in the dark. It's pitch black dark. It's a very hard thing to get a reservation there. And we managed to get a reservation. There were two of us. And you go in there and you cannot see anything. You eat with your hands or you try to get a fork and get it up to your mouth. And it's very interesting because you taste the food in a different way and you feel connected to the food. And the thing about it is all the servers are blind. You walk in there and you become blind, so to speak. You cannot see anything. And the thing about it that's so memorable to me is I walked out of there and I could see. So not only did I have an interesting experience, I had a grateful experience because I realized what it was like to some degree.
Read the menu?
You don't. They tell you.
Oh,
they tell you. There's no reading anything. It's pitch black. There's no exit signs or anything.
So you only get to taste it and smell it. You don't
Yeah.
get.
But it's interesting when you don't see it. Sometimes it takes away some of. A lot of things tasted like pudding. I couldn't see them. It was a very interesting experience. But again, you realize how lucky you are to walk out of there and be able to see. So that's what I think of. One of my memories of Switzerland.
I never want to go to a restaurant like that in Russia.
Right, right. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We're going to talk about some of the places that we've been to that have changed. How about South Africa?
I was there for a golf tournament. I was invited by South African Airways back in the day when travel agents were treated like kings by the airlines. That was in Durban. So we stayed in Durban right along the beach there, a beautiful beach area. Went to the market, the Indian market. Which
Yes. I would add that that's the Zulu culture in Durban, and they have wonderful shows and wonderful exhibits of the Zulu culture.
While I was playing golf, they took my wife sightseeing every day, and she showed me the pictures, and I said, damn, I wish I was sightseeing instead of playing.
Absolutely.
And then we went to a game preserve called Pinda. They had 16 rooms that were all glass. And so you could see the animals from any room you were in, except for the toilet area. Even the shower from the chest up was clear.
Did you see an animal while you were in the shower?
Oh, lots of times. Yeah, lots of times.
A giraffe?
Giraffes, wildebeest,
Oh,
zebras.
that's something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we went to Cape Town, and I fell in love with Cape Town. It's one of my favorite towns. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful town. I told you in my book, we ran across Desmond Tutu there in the parking lot. But we were there in November, which was their spring. So all the trees and flowers were blooming. And this park behind the cathedral was just breathtaking.
I would mention that there's a great new museum on the waterfront area there, and one of the great ones in the world. They pull together art from all over Africa, South Africa, and the whole continent. And also Robben Island is where you can go right from the harbor there to see where Nelson Mandela was in prison. So there's a lot of history as well as beauty. And I would recommend the wine country. It's only an hour or so away, and it is one of the most beautiful wine countries I've ever been to because the mountains frame it, and it's absolutely lovely. I think we both agree South Africa's a winner.
Did you take the coast road down to the Cape, right to the tip?
Yes, to the tip.
That's one of the most beautiful roads. It ranks up there with the Amalfi Coast and the California coast. It's just a beautiful road.
Yes. And anyone who saw My Octopus Teacher, that great movie, that's where the octopus lived, right in the area there at the tip of South Africa. How about Greece? I know your name says that you're perhaps of that heritage, right?
Yeah, my father's parents came from Greece at the turn of the 20th century. Obviously, it has a special meaning. And I've been there 3 times. The latest was back in the 80s, but I'm going there this summer. I'm taking my whole family there. There's 12 of us going. We're not going to do the islands. We're going to do parts that I haven't been to. Since Grandpa's paying for it, we're going to go see what Grandpa wants to see. So we're going to go up near Corinth and Delphi. And yeah.
It's all wonderful.
Well, we are going to Crete.
Yes, Crete is one of my favorite islands because it's one of the oldest cultures in all of Europe, the Minoans. And they were there from 2700 to 1420 BC. I happen to know that. And so you have something there that you don't have anywhere else in Europe because it's a culture that was very great for a long time. And also there's great hiking there. But I wrote about the islands for photos. I did 3 editions of photos, the Greek islands. So I know them well. And I would say if you're going to go to the islands, one of the ways to save money is to take the ferry, just like the locals do. And they travel from island to island. And if you have an idea of where you want to go, and I would concentrate on one group of islands, or about 6 groups, and you don't want to go too far because there's plenty of islands in each group, but just take the ferry. And if you like an island that way, you can stay as long as you want, and it's very inexpensive compared to a cruise ship. And I do love the Greek islands so much.
Crete's where my grandparents came from.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And when we go back there after our main trip, we're going to spend 3 days at a resort. And I've hired a guide to take us to the village where my grandparents came from.
Oh, how wonderful. I love the town of Hana. It's a beautiful town.
Yes.
It's especially beautiful.
As I said, I spent 1 day there. I was on a cruise and we stopped in Heraclion and we went to Minos' palace. And that's the only thing I did. So I want to explore it a lot more now.
I think one island that's a little bit out of the way in the northwest is Corfu. That's another of my favorites. It's greener than most of the other Greek islands, and it has a wonderful, wonderful UNESCO heritage site downtown, an old town that has 2 Venetian fortresses. It has medieval lanes and French-style arcades and grand palaces. It's a fabulous island. If you have been to the main ones, Mykonos and Santorini.
Yeah, I've been to those. I haven't been to Crete. I mean, to Corfu.
Yeah, Corfu is a little out of the way, but it's extremely beautiful. Well, how about its neighbor, Turkey?
I've only been to Istanbul, which I found is a fascinating city with the culture and the palaces and the mosques. The Blue Mosque was breathtaking. I've been there, and then I went to Ephesus for a day on the cruise. Of course, we got to Istanbul by the cruise too. I could go back to Istanbul tomorrow. Turkey, I liked it. Agents that work for me who have gone to the resort areas of Turkey, and they said they were beautiful.
They are.
So, that's another one on my bucket list.
Yeah, Bodrum. Bodrum is one town that has magnificent resorts. And also, there are 2 areas I love very much, a little inland. One is Cappadocia in central Turkey. It's the one with the distinctive tall cone-shaped rock formations they call fairy chimneys. And You take a balloon over the area. That's very
Oh, that
popular.
would be
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah, I'd love to
fascinating.
do that.
And people, you can actually live in the caves, or B&Bs, or hotels that are built right into the rock. So it's something to behold. And another town I love, Pamukkale, is in Western Turkey, and it has these really mineral-rich thermal waters. They flow down terraces on a hillside. I've seen it a lot on Instagram lately. I went maybe 20 years ago before that, that was shown so much, but I think now it's pretty popular because it's exceptionally beautiful. Just cascades of these
Yeah.
white, beautiful spa rich waters, and there's ruins there, Roman ruins, pool which has submerged Roman columns because there was an earthquake. So you see them under the water. It's unbelievable. So there's a lot there.
I have a degree in history, and I just love anything historical.
Right. Well, how about Romania? That's a place that not many have yet gone to, and you mentioned that in your book. I also have been there. And what was your opinion?
Well, I was there in the early 90s, and it was like a year and a half after Ceausescu was deposed. The only reason I went, and I explained it in my book, is because we met a young lady on a train from Zagreb to Venice who spoke English, and that was her first trip outside of Romania, and she had never met an American. She learned English by somebody who learned English from somebody else, and we kind of fell in love with her. And eventually we brought her here. So we had trouble getting her a visa. And a weak moment, I said, well, if you can't get a visa here, we'll come to visit you in Romania. I understand now, 35 years later, is really beautiful country.
Oh, it is beautiful.
Yeah. And they've got super duper hotels.
A lot has changed since Ceausescu, for sure. And the place he lived, offices he lived in, is the largest building is outside of the Pentagon.
Yeah,
in Romania.
It's huge. Yeah.
He liked Paris, so he built the Champs-Élysées replica going toward his palace. So when you're there in that area, you feel like you are in Paris. I have a story in Romania. I went off a cruise ship and was walking around with a friend, and we walked outside of the city that we were supposed to stay in, and we walked in the countryside, and all of a sudden we saw a pack of wild dogs coming toward us, and we didn't know what to do. We were like, oh my gosh. So we saw a car and we jumped on it. I jumped on the hood and she jumped on some other part, and there was a person in the car, and I don't know what he thought, but the dogs passed us by. But that's one of my memories. And, this name of the podcast is Places I Remember. That was a place I sometimes remember in my...
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Now
that it's over.
I had a similar situation in Belize. We were walking through along the beach, and a pack of dogs came and started barking.
You have to use your head. You have to sort of, what do you do? Well, anything you can get up, I guess you try for that. But
I grabbed a branch, and we happened to be laying on the ground, and I started moving it back and forth. And then somebody came out of one of the resorts and started throwing rocks at them.
Okay, well, that's good. But luckily that man was parked there. I don't know. He could have been a bad guy or something, but we didn't care.
But he was better than the dogs.
We thought so.
The lesser of two evils.
Nearby Romania is, I don't know if you've been to Bulgaria, but I want to mention it if you haven't. I think it is one of the countries that has just about everything, and you don't realize it. It was in the Soviet Union for many years, so those of us who were not didn't know much about it, but it is a wonderful country in terms of Roman ruins and Thracian gold. They have great food, great wine, lovely people, and I hope we can get to it eventually. I think they have no direct flights there, and that's why a lot of people still haven't discovered Bulgaria, but keep it in your mind.
Bulgaria and Albania are the only two countries in Europe I haven't been to.
Yeah. Well, you've been to the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. What do you think of those?
Oh, fascinating. They were beautiful. We went to Tallinn. We went to Riga. I always forget how to pronounce the capital of
Vilnius.
Yes, Vilnius. We had guides that were super. They took us all over. We saw in Estonia, we saw the President's Palace, which was originally built by Peter the Great for his daughter. And we took a road trip between the countries. So in other words, after we were done in Estonia, we went to Latvia. After we were done in Latvia, we went to Lithuania. Palaces and gardens, and the food was terrific. In Tallinn, there's a marketplace where the old mayor's office, what do you call town hall. and they have restaurants all around the market. Each one's better than the next.
That's great.
And they've got a pharmacy there that's been in a pharmacy for 700 years.
Oh my, I hope they changed the prescriptions. Maybe not, I don't know. But you can get to Tallinn from Finland. I came from Finland on a hydrofoil. And so if you are going to Finland, you might want to think about that, add some time to get over to that Baltic area.
So
like fairy tales, right?
I'd go back there tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's a hidden secret. Not so hidden are the pleasures of South America. They're the basic ones everybody knows about: Galapagos, Iguazu Falls, Machu Picchu. But we have two things here that from your book that both of us have been to. One is the Peruvian Amazon. Tell us about that.
Oh, that was a trip that didn't start out well, but it ended up to be probably in my top 5 of wonderful vacations.
What happened?
Well, as a travel agent, I used to get discounts here and there. So I took advantage of a package that was a cruise down the Amazon. So my wife and I and my wife's sister, Jane, the 3 of us went. We spent a couple of days in Lima, and then we flew to Iquitos. That's where we picked up the ship. My wife saw the ship, and she says, "I'm not getting on that boat."
I've been on that one. I know which one you mean.
The Rio Amazonas?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty basic.
I tell people, if you remember the fairy tale, Rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in the tub was a better vessel than that ship.
But look where you are.
But it turned out to be one of the most fascinating trips. We met up with 3 women from Florida and 2 women from California, and we had a blast with them. And the ecosystem and the way the people live and how they live off the jungle and whatnot, it's just fascinating. I'd go back again, but I'd get a better ship.
I hope so. I think they've made it a little better, the tourism. I went about 30 years ago, and we went it was on a press trip, and we went deep into the Amazon jungle to visit this tribe that was known as being kind of unfriendly. The word was that a lady from Connecticut was hit by a blow dart because she wasn't polite to the chief.
Oh.
And her hand was, so we were frightened. There were about 6 of us. So we said, whatever this chief says, just do it because, we don't want to get hit. So the chief must have figured this out because he gave us this animal, sort of a big rodent. I forgot the name of it. And he gave the rodent to one of us, luckily not me. And the man had to run around a pole. And then he said, all of you run around the pole. So we ran around a pole holding a rodent because we were afraid of the chief. But then happily, he was pleased with us because we all brought gifts like T-shirts, sunglasses, things we thought they might like. One man brought his wife's girdle. And the chief thought it was a slingshot. So he was very happy, and it worked out. But that was a wonderful memory again afterwards.
Afterwards.
Not during.
Right, afterwards. You were scared to death. How did she appreciate losing her girdle?
She wasn't on the trip.
He just brought it from home?
He grabbed it. Yeah, he grabbed it. Anyway, that was a story. Again, some of the worst things that happened to you turn out to be the best memories, the best stories. Once they're over.
It's true.
Now, we've been both of us to many places that at this point we can't go to, like Russia. When I went, it was just after it was a Soviet
that's when I was too. It was before the wall came down.
Yeah, it was a tough place in 1995 when I was there, and obviously right now nobody's going, but at least I went when I could, and I got to see the Hermitage and.
Right.
Like you, many of the great buildings.
St. Petersburg is a beautiful city.
Yeah, as long as it's safe and our government says so and so forth, I would say try to go to those places while you can. For example, I was in the Ukraine in 2011, and it was gorgeous. It was beautiful, and the people were lovely, and I feel absolutely devastated, and I know that for years and years it will be difficult to go to visit there. You just take advantage when you can. I think we were both in China early on. I think I was there first in 1982, and you were there, I think, around the same time. Yeah. And at that time, everyone was walking or taking bikes, and they were looking at you very carefully because you looked different.
We were the sightseeing for them. And they encouraged us. The guides told us, if somebody comes up and tries to speak English with you, please, converse with them. And it happened a few times, but more so, as I said in the book, they would stare at us.
Yeah.
I've never seen Westerners before. So.
Right. Yeah, but now I went a few times, and most recently, maybe 10 years ago, and there were maglev trains that go 433 kilometers an hour. It had moved so far. It was astounding.
I can imagine what it's like today. I mean,
Yeah.
I went in 1980 and again in 1996, and the difference was night and day.
Yeah.
And as I say in the book, it was like when Dorothy landed in Oz and opened the door. Great hotels and nice restaurants. And I can imagine what it's like today.
Yeah.
How much better it is today.
I used to call them blue sky days because they were rare because there was so much pollution.
Yeah.
When I went, there were blue sky days. Most of the days I was there over 2 or 3 weeks, which is because they have very stringent rules now in terms of pollution. So they're moving in that direction too. I don't know if you've been to Myanmar, Burma.
No,
that's another place. I was there 10 years ago, perhaps, and it was a great place to visit. And of course, now they have this terrible situation going there. So the message, I guess, from both of us is if you're in doubt and it's safe and you're comfortable with it, go when you can.
Right. Exactly.
Any other message, Gary, before we end?
I mean, I have some things on my bucket list. I haven't been to Southeast Asia very much. Japan, I'd like to go to. I'd like to go to South Korea, Thailand. I'm ready to get on an airplane tomorrow.
That's the best thing. You want to just keep going, keep moving.
Back during the pandemic, nobody went anywhere for 2.5 years. And then last year it exploded. And I'm a prime example of one of the people who had cabin fever. Last year I went to London twice. I went to Toronto. I went to Tanzania. And I went to Florida. It was kind of like overkill. Mm-hmm. This year, I only have Greece planned this year.
That's all? Okay. I'm the same. I went, the first trip I took after being housebound for about 2.5 years was Rwanda to see the mountain gorillas.
Right.
And that's as far as I can go.
Yeah, that's right. That's another thing on my bucket list. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But, I'm getting on in years. I want to see places, that I've sent a lot of clients to, that clients were impressed with over the years.
Well, thank you, Gary Loupassakis, author of Go Dat Way and Go Dare, Around the World in 50 Years, for your insights that only a travel agent could share. And I know you've sent people, as you said, all over the world. I'm glad you're traveling along with them.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to our award-winning podcast. We've recorded over 100 episodes of Places I Remember, so follow us on any podcast app. And new monthly episodes are also on YouTube with gorgeous video. My book, Places I Remember, is available in print and Kindle, and I read the audio version. Follow my travel writing at Forbes.com. Contact me at the links in the show notes or on my website, placesirememberlealane.com, and keep making your own travel memories.